Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for stopping by the story corner. Oh, I know I look rough. I'm sorry. It was a day. Not only did I get to bed really late because after I put the baby to bed, I went and cleaned, and because it's so hard to get it done when he's awake. So I got to bed really late. And then I was up in the night and I slept in. So, like 9 o'clock, I was awake, but I was still in my pajamas. And the maintenance guy knocked on the door to come change the battery in our smoke detector. So I was in my PJs. It's really embarrassing. I mean, I was up with the baby, and I was actually nursing him when he was knocking. So I had to, quickly put that away and go. But I was a little embarrassed. But that's kind of how my day kicked off. And then, yeah, just crazy from there. So I have two part-time jobs, and one of my bosses, he he sells Cutco, but he has like 23,000 customers. I'm not kidding. And he does these events in the area and he sends out texts and stuff to all his customers. So he sent a text out saying the prices are going up tomorrow because they are. And if you want anything, let me know. So he sent out these hundreds and hundreds of texts, thousands. And then he was at an event sharpening and he called me and he said, I am being bombarded with these emails. And I do this kind of stuff for him anyway. He said, but I can't do it. Can you just take it? And it was everything from I placed an order and had a problem with it to I need sharpening to how much does this cost? Oh my goodness. And just message after message just stacked. And so I went through and I started answering, giving replies and giving information. And then as I'm going down the list, then the people I replied to are replying back. So I'm just like message after message after message all afternoon, like hours and hours of just keeping up with his messages. And I was going to do a bunch of stuff for myself for sales, but I was so busy doing his stuff that I didn't do anything for me, which, but he's killing it. Holy cow. This guy, he's 20, no, 30, 32. And I think he's been selling Cutco for like 7 years or 8 years. He made $40,000 this month, and he made $40,000 last month just selling knives. Like it's insane, and he's so busy. He can't keep up with all his messages and all of his scheduling, which is why he's asked me to do it. And it's nice because he pays me generously and he's really nice and I can do it on my computer from home and it's great. But holy cow, I've been busy. And my life story on my channel here, but it was a long day. It was fun, but it's a lot of work. And then of course Caden dumped my coffee everywhere. He dumped a Sprite on the couch. He dumped out an entire container of blueberries in the kitchen. Like because I'm stressed and I'm distracted, he's just going from one terroristic mess to the next. Holy cow. Oh my goodness. I'm so tired. It was a day. Anyway, here I am to read. And before I get started, what did you have for dinner? Or, what are you going to have for dinner? I made some, chili the other day for kind of like chipotle salad kind of style that I did. And we had just a little leftover. So I did soda bread or beer bread. You can put beer or soda in it and it's a mix. And I did cheese and dill weed. So it was a soda bread because I used Sprite. So it was kind of sweet. It was really good. And then it had a cheese and dill and Sprite in it. I know it sounds weird, but it was dang good. It's bread, but it's kind of like the texture of cornbread almost, but it doesn't have corn in it. It was yum. And then the chili was really good especially because I put all the toppings and it was extra spicy and it was just so yummy. And then I had made a broccoli salad with nuts and dried cranberries and mayonnaise and stuff on it and had let it sit in the fridge overnight. So we had that and it was good. So that's what we did for dinner. And then we still had one can of Sprite because I made that bread with the Sprite. And so we had Sprite floats. And if you've never tried Sprite floats, they're good. It's yummy. Sprite on ice cream. It's really good. So that's what we had for dinner. And the kitchen's a huge mess and I haven't cleaned it up because I've still got to go back and finish entering all the information for my boss for Collins. So I still have work to do. And it's like 15 after 9 here. That's how late I am. Anyway, yeah. Oh, I should probably show off a couple of cute things before we get started, just because I can. Okay, look at these. How cute are these? They're little cute star earrings. And then they have these little dangly beads set inside of them, so they actually dangle separately. You can see that. They're really cute, and these are almost like the iridescent. You know that the metal that's kind of rainbow metallic. That's what those beads are. That kind of rainbow metallic. You can see them changing color as you turn it. So they're cool. Very cute. And then let me just grab something out of here. Oh, there's these little leaf earrings. So they're golden green, and then they have a tiny little gold leaf charm separate on top of them, so you can see, that it's actually dangling separate. So those are really cute too. And that's it. That's all I'm going to show you for tonight because I'm tired. Got to read, get the reading done. So this is in separate volumes. So we finished volume 1, and this is letter 1 in volume 2. So, and it starts with a letter from Evelina to the Reverend Mr. Villers. My vitamin juice. Okay. Howard Grove, Kent, May 10th. Our house has been enlivened today by the arrival of a London visitor, and the necessity I have been under of concealing the uneasiness of my mind has made me exert myself so effectually that I even think it is really diminished, or at least my thoughts are not so totally, so very anxiously occupied by one only subject as they lately were. I was strolling this morning with Miss Mervyn down a lane about a mile from the grove, when we heard the trampling of horses, and fearing the narrowness of the passage, we were turning hastily back, but stopped upon hearing a voice call out, "Pray, ladies, don't be frightened, for I will walk my horse." We turned again, and then saw Sir Clement Willoughby. He dismounted, and approaching us with the reins in his hand, presently recollected us. "Good heaven!" cried he, with his usual quickness, "do I see Miss Anville, and you too, Miss Mervyn?" He immediately ordered his servant to take charge of his horse, and then advancing to us, took a hand of each, which he pressed to his lips, and said 1,000 fine things concerning his good fortune, our improved looks, and the charms of the country when inhabited by such rural deities. "The town, ladies, has languished since your absence, or at least I have so much languished myself as to be absolutely insensible to all it had to offer. One refreshing breeze, such as I now enjoy, awakens me to a new vigor, life, and spirit. But I never before had the good luck to see the country in such perfection." I was thinking he was already there all this time, but he wasn't. I guess it was just Madame Duval. So the captain invited him to come out to Howard Grove, but I guess he didn't before, so oops, here he is now. "Has not everybody almost everybody left town, sir?" said Miss Mervyn. "I am ashamed to answer you, madam, but indeed it is as full as ever, and will continue so till after the birthday." I don't know what that means. Maybe like the king's birthday or princess. I cannot tell if it's like too loud out there, if I should go shut the door. I left it open so Caden could come find me, because sometimes if I come in a room and shut the door, he freaks out and he stands outside the door crying his heart out, because how could I shut him out? Oh my goodness. But he's not even coming, trying to find me. And it's loud out there. Trying to decide. That's probably fine. Okay. Has not almost... Oh, I read that. However... the heck? I did the whole page. Okay. "However, you ladies were so little seen that there are but a few who know what it has lost. For my own part, I felt it too sensibly to be able to endure the place any longer." "Is there anybody remaining there that we were acquainted with?" cried I. "Oh, yes, ma'am." And then he named 2 or 3 persons we had seen with him. But he did not mention Lord Orville, and I would not ask him, lest he should think me curious. Perhaps, if he stays here some time, he may speak of him by accident. He was proceeding in this complimentary style when we were met by the captain, who no sooner perceived Sir Clement than he hastened up to him, gave him a hearty shake of the hand, a cordial slap on the back, and some other equally gentle tokens of satisfaction, assuring him of his great joy at his visit, and declaring he was as glad to see him as if he had been a messenger who brought news that a French ship was sunk. Sir Clement, on the other side, expressed himself with equal warmth, and protested he had been so eager to pay his respects to Captain Mervyn that he had left London in its full lustre, and 1,000 engagements unanswered, merely to give himself that pleasure. "We shall have rare sport," said the captain, "for do you know the old Frenchwoman is among us? 'Fore George, I have scarce made any use of her yet, by reason I have had nobody with me that could enjoy a joke. Howsomever, it shall go hard but we'll have some diversion now." Sir Clement was very much approved of this proposal, and we then went into the house, where he had a very grave reception from Mrs. Mervyn, who is by no means pleased with his visit, and a look of much discontent from Madame Duval, who said to me in a low voice, "I'd as soon have seen old Nick as that man, for he's the most impertinent person in the world, and is never on my side." The captain is now actually occupied in contriving some scheme, which he says is to play the old dowager off, and so eager and delighted as he is he at the idea that he can scarcely contain his raptures sufficiently to conceal his design, even from herself. I wish, however, since I do not dare put Madame Duval upon her guard, that he had the delicacy not to acquaint me with his intention. It was a short one. Letter 2. Evelina in continuation. May 13th. The captain's operations are begun, and I hope ended, for indeed poor Madame Duval has already had too much reason to regret Sir Clement's visit to Howard Grove. Yesterday evening, during breakfast, as the captain was reading the newspaper, Sir Clement suddenly begged to look at it, saying he wanted to know if there was any account of a transaction, at which he had been present the evening before his journey hither, concerning a poor Frenchman who had got into a scrape which might cost him his life. The captain demanded particulars, and then Sir Clement told a long story of being with a party of country friends at the Tower, and hearing a man call out for mercy in French, and that when he inquired into the occasion of his distress, he was informed that he had been taken up upon suspicion of treasonable practices against the government. The poor fellow, continued he, no sooner found that I spoke French than he besought me to hear him, protesting that he had no evil designs, that he had been but a short time in England, and only waited the return of a lady from the country to quit it forever. Madame Duval changed colour, and listened with utmost attention. Now, though I by no means approve of so many foreigners continually flocking into our country, added he, addressing himself to the captain, yet I could not help pitying the poor wretch, because he did not know enough of English to make his defence. However, I found it impossible to assist him, for the mob would not suffer me to interfere. In truth, I am afraid he was but roughly handled. "Why, did they duck him?" said the captain. "Something of that sort," answered he. "So much the better, so much the better," cried the captain. "An impudent French puppy. I'll bet you what you will, he was a rascal. I only wish all his countrymen were served the same." "I wish you had been in his place, with all my soul," cried Madame Duval warmly. "But pray, sir, didn't nobody know who this poor gentleman was?" "Why, I did hear his name," answered Sir Clement, "but I cannot recollect it." It wasn't Dubois," stammered out Madame Duval. "The very name," answered he. "Yes, Dubois. I remember it now." Madame Duval's cup fell from her hand as she repeated, "Dubois. Monsieur Dubois, did you say?" "Dubois? Why, that's my friend," cried the captain. "That's Monsieur Slippery, ain't it? Why, he's plaguey fond of sousing work. Howsomever, I'll be sworn they gave him his fill of it." "And I'll be sworn," cried Madame Duval, "that you're a— but I don't believe nothing about it, so you needn't be so overjoyed, for I dare say it was no more Monsieur Dubois than I am." I thought at the time, said Sir Clement very gravely, that I had seen the gentleman before, and now I recollect I think it was in company with you, madame. With me, sir, cried Madame Duval. Say you so, said the captain. Why then it must be he, as sure as you're alive. Well, but, my good friend, what will they do with poor Monsieur? It is difficult to say, answered Sir Clement very thoughtfully, but I should suppose that if he has not got good friends to appear for him, he will be in a very unpleasant situation, for these are serious sorts of affairs. Why, do you think they'll hang him? Demanded the captain. Sir Clement shook his head, but made no answer. Madame Duval could no longer contain her agitation. She started from her chair, repeating with a voice half choked, Hang him! They can't, let them at their peril. However, it's all false, and I won't believe a word of it. But I'll go to town this very moment and see Monsieur Dubois myself. I won't wait for nothing. Mrs. Mervyn begged her not to be alarmed, but she flew out of the room and upstairs into her own apartment. Lady Howard blamed both the gentlemen for having been so abrupt, and followed her. I would have accompanied her, but the captain stopped me, and having first laughed very heartily, said he was going to read his commission. To a ship's company. Now, do you see, said he, as to Lady Howard, I shan't pretend for to enlist her into my service, and so I shall e'en leave her to make it out as well as she can. But as to all you, I expect obedience and submission to orders. I am now upon a hazardous expedition, having undertaken to convoy a crazy vessel to the shore of mortification. So, do you see, if any of you have anything to propose that will forward the enterprise, why speak and welcome. But if any of you that are of my chosen crew capitulate or enter into any treaty with the enemy, I shall look upon you as mutinying and turn you adrift. Having finished this harangue, which was interlarded with many expressions and sea phrases that I cannot recollect, he gave Sir Clement a week of intelligence, and left us to ourselves. Indeed, notwithstanding the attempts I so frequently make of writing some of the captain's conversation, I can only give you a faint idea of his language, for almost every other word he says is accompanied by an oath, which I am sure would be as unpleasant for you to read as for me to write. And besides, he makes use of 1,000 sea terms, which are to me quite unintelligible. Poor Madame Duval sent to inquire at all probable places whether she could be conveyed to town in any stagecoach, but the captain's servant brought her for answer that no London stage would pass near Howard Grove till today. She then sent to order a chaise, but was soon assured that no horses could be procured. She was so much inflamed by these disappointments that she threatened to set out for town on foot, and it was with difficulty that Lady Howard dissuaded her from this mad scheme. The whole morning was filled up with these inquiries, but when we were all assembled to dinner, she endeavored to appear perfectly unconcerned, and repeatedly protested that she gave not any credit to the report as far as it regarded Monsieur Dubois, being very certain that he was not the person in question. The captain used the most provoking efforts to convince her that she deceived herself, while Sir Clement, with more art, though not less malice, affected to be of her opinion, but at the same time that he pretended to relieve her uneasiness by saying that he doubted not having mistaken the name, he took care to enlarge upon the danger to which the unknown gentleman was exposed, and expressed great concern at his perilous situation. Dinner was hardly removed when a letter was delivered to Madame Duval. The moment she had read it, she hastily demanded from whom it came. A country boy brought it, answered the servant, but he would not wait. Run after him this instant, cried she, and be sure you bring him back. Mon Dieu, quel ever. I'm saying more French. I can't speak French, so I don't even know what it says. Sorry. What's the matter? What's the matter? Said the captain. Why, nothing's the matter. Oh, mon Dieu. And she rose and walked about the room. Why, what? Has Monsieur sent to you? Continued the captain. Is that their letter from him? No, it ain't. Besides, if it is, it's nothing to you. Oh, then, I'm sure it is. Pray now, madam, don't be so close. Come, tell us all about it. What does he say? How did he relish the horse pond? Which did he find best, sousing single or double? For George, 'twas plaguy unlucky you was not with him. It is no such thing, sir, cried she very angrily. And if you're so very fond of a horse pond, I wish you'd put yourself into one, and not be always a thinking about other people's being served so. The man then came in to acquaint her that they could not overtake the boy. She scolded violently, and was in such perturbation that Lady Howard interfered and begged to know the cause of her uneasiness, and whether she could assist her. Oh, he came and found me after all. Hi, baby. I love you. Hi, Pumpkin. Do you want to come say hi? Do you want to say hi? Oh. Say hi. Mwah. Oh. How did you take that apart? Oh, he's a handful. Oh, you need a drink? All right, you can have a drink. Here you go. You need some vitamin water? Oh my, he was thirsty. You're thirsty. You're thirsty, boy. Oh my goodness. You were so thirsty. You need more? You don't think that's good? You're just not going to be satisfied till you drink it all? Oh my goodness. You are so thirsty. Oh, that's probably enough, baby. I think that's probably enough. Madame Duval cast her eyes upon the captain and Sir Clement, and said she should be glad to speak to her ladyship without so many witnesses. Well then, Miss Anville, said the captain, turning to me, do you and Molly go into another room and stay there till Miss Duval has opened her mind to us. Yeah, she's saying she'd like to talk to Mrs. Mervyn without so many people around. So he's like, oh, okay, well, he'll send out Evelina and Molly. Her name's not actually Molly. It's interesting that I think back then Moll or Molly was like a nickname for all girls, like girly. Kind of weird, right? Oh my goodness, you're just gonna drink it all, huh? So that he can hear what she has to say, when the whole point of her wanting to talk to Mrs. Mervyn alone is because she doesn't want to talk about it in front of the captain, so he's just being a jerk. So you may think, sir, cried she, but who's fool then? No, you needn't trouble yourself to make a ninny of me, neither, for I'm not so easily taken in, I'll assure you. Lady Howard then invited her into the dressing-room, and I was desired to attend her. As soon as we had shut the door, "Oh, my lady," exclaimed Madame Duval, "here's the most cruelest thing in the world has happened. But that captain is such a beast, I can't say nothing before him, but it's all true. Poor Monsieur Dubois is tooked up." Lady Howard begged her to be comforted, saying that, as Monsieur Dubois was certainly innocent, there could be no doubt of his ability to clear himself. "To be sure, my lady," answered she, "I know he is as innocent, and to be sure they'll never be so wicked as to hang him for nothing." "Certainly not," replied Lady Howard. "You have no reason to be uneasy. This is not a country where punishment is inflicted without proof." "Very true, my lady, but the worst thing is this. I cannot bear that fellow, the captain, should know about it, for if he does, I shall never hear the last of it." Yeah. "No more won't poor Monsieur Dubois." Well, said Lady Howard, "show me the letter, and I will endeavour to advise you." The letter was then produced. It was signed by the clerk of a county justice, who acquainted her that a prisoner, then upon trial for suspicion of treasonable practices against the government, was just upon the point of being committed to jail, but having declared that he was known to her, this clerk had been prevailed upon to write, in order to inquire if she really could speak to the character and family of a Frenchman who called himself Pierre Dubois. Let me see. I thought this chapter was a short one, but it's a long one. I don't know. Why did I think it was another short chapter? This is a long one. It's like pages and pages. Oh, my goodness. Oh, it's pretty long. Oh well, we'll just plow through. We're halfway done. Oh, you're such a helper. Mwah, mwah, mwah. When I heard the letter, I was quite amazed at its success, So improbable did it seem that a foreigner should be taken before a country justice of peace for a crime of so dangerous a nature that I cannot imagine how Madame Duval could be alarmed even for a moment. But with all her violence of temper, I see that she is easily frightened, and in fact more cowardly than many who have not half her spirit, and so little does she reflect upon circumstances or probability that she is continually the dupe of her own, I ought not to say ignorance, but yet I can think of no other word. I believe that Lady Howard, from the beginning of the transaction, suspected some contrivance of the captain, and this letter, I am sure, must confirm her suspicion. However, though she is not at all pleased with his frolic, yet she would not hazard the consequence of discovering his designs. Her looks, her manner, and her character made me draw this conclusion from her apparent perplexity, for not a word did she say that implied any doubt of the authenticity of the letter. Indeed, there seems to be a sort of tacit agreement between her and the captain, that she should not appear to be acquainted with his schemes, by which means she at once avoids quarrels and supports her dignity. While she was considering what to propose, Madame Duval began to beg Madame Duval, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm so tired. Madame Duval begged the use of her ladyship's chariot that she might go immediately to the assistance of her friend. Lady Howard politely assured her that she would be extremely at her service, and then Madame Duval besought her not to own to the captain what had happened, protesting that she could not endure he should know poor Monsieur Dubois had met with so unfortunate an accident. Lady Howard could not help smiling, though she readily promised not to inform the captain of the affair. As to me, she desired my attendance, which I was by no means rejoiced at, as I was certain she was going upon a fruitless errand. I was then commissioned to order the chariot. At the foot of the stairs I met the captain, who was most impatiently waiting the result of the conference. In an instant we were joined by Sir Clement. 1,000 inquiries were then made concerning Madame Duval's opinion of the letter, and her intentions upon it, and when I would have left them, Sir Clement, pretending equal eagerness with the captain, caught my hand and repeatedly detained me to ask some frivolous question, to the answer of which he must be totally indifferent. At length, however, I broke from them. They retired into the parlour, and I executed my commission. The carriage was soon ready, and Madame Duval, having begged Lady Howard to say she was not well, stole softly downstairs, desiring me to follow her. The chariot was ordered at the garden door, and when we were seated, she told the man, according to the clerk's directions, to drive to Mr. Justice Tyrrell's, asking at the same time how many miles off he lived. I expected he would have answered that he knew of no such person, but to my great surprise he said, "Why, Squire Tyrrell lives about 9 miles beyond the park." "Drive fast, then," cried she, "and you shan't be no worse for it." During our ride, which was extremely tedious, she tormented herself with 1,000 fears for Monsieur Dubois' safety, and piqued herself very much upon having escaped unseen by the captain. Not only that she had avoided his triumph, but because she knew that him to be so much Monsieur Dubois' enemy, that she was sure he would prejudice the justice against him and endeavour to take away his life. For my part, I was quite ashamed of being engaged in so ridiculous an affair, and could only think of the absurd appearance we should make upon our arrival at Mr. Tyrrell's. When we had been out near 2 hours, and expected every moment to stop at the place of our destination, I observed that Lady Howard's servant, who attended us on horseback, rode on forward till he was out of sight, and soon after returning, came up to the chariot window, and delivering a note to Madame Duval, said he had met a boy who was just coming with it to Howard Grove from the clerk of Mr. Tyrrell. While she was reading it, he rode round to the other window, and making a sign for secrecy, put into my hand a slip of paper, on which was written, "Whatever happens, be not alarmed, for you are safe, though you endanger all mankind." I readily imagined that Sir Clement must be the author of this note, which prepared me to expect some disagreeable adventure. But I had no time to ponder upon it, for Madame Duval had no sooner read her own letter than in an angry tone of voice she exclaimed, "Why now, what a thing is this? Here we've come all this way for nothing." She then gave me the note, which informed her that she need not trouble herself to go to Mr. Tyrrell's, as the prisoner had the address to escape. I congratulated her upon this fortunate incident, but she was so much concerned at having rode so far in vain that she seemed less pleased than provoked. However, she ordered the man to make what haste he could home, as she hoped at least to return before the captain should suspect what had passed. The carriage turned about, and we journeyed so quietly for near an hour that I began to flatter myself we should be suffered to proceed to Howell Grove without further molestation, when suddenly the footman called out, "John, are we going—" Hey. Don't yell. You're too loud. "John, are we going right?" "Why, I ain't sure," said the coachman, "but I'm afraid we turned wrong." "What do you mean by that, sirrah?" said Madame Duval. "Why, if you lost your way, we shall be all in the dark." "I think we should turn to the left," said the footman. "To the left?" answered the other. No, I'm partly sure we should turn to the right." "You had better make some inquiry," said I. "Ma foi!" cried Madame Duval. "We're in a fine hole here. They neither of them know no more than the post. However, I'll tell my lady as sure as you're born, so you'd better find the way." "Let's try this lane," said the footman. "No," said the coachman, "that's the road to Canterbury. We had best go straight on." "Why, that's a direct London road," returned the footman, "and will lead us 20 miles about." "Pardi!" cried Madame Duval. "Why, they won't go one way nor the other. And now we're all come all this jaunt for nothing. I suppose we shan't get home tonight." "Let's go back to the public house," said the footman, "and ask for a guide." No, said the other. "If we stay here a few minutes, somebody or other will pass by, and the horses are almost knocked up already." "Well, I protest," cried Madame Duval. "I'd give a guinea to see them sots both horsewhipped. As sure as I'm alive, they're drunk. 10 to 1 they'll overturn us next." After much debating, they at length agreed to go on till we came to some inn or met with a passenger who could direct us. We soon arrived at a small farmhouse, and the footman alighted and went into it. In a few minutes he returned and told us we might proceed, for that he had procured a direction. "But," added he, "it seems there are some thieves hereabouts, and so the best way will be for you to leave your watches and purses with the farmer, who I know very well, and who is an honest man and a tenant of my lady's." "Thieves!" cried Madame Duval, looking aghast. "The Lord help us! I've no doubt but we shall be all murdered." The farmer came up to us, and we gave him all we were worth, and the servants followed our example. We then proceeded, and Madame Duval's anger so entirely subsided that in the mildest manner imaginable she entreated them to make haste, and promised to tell their lady how diligent and obliging they had been. She perpetually stopped them to ask if they apprehended any danger, and was at length so much overpowered by her fears that she made the footman fasten his horse to the back of the carriage, and then come and seat himself within it. "You want to get up? Jump! Woo-hoo! I love you so much." I'm not going to help you. You're silly. My endeavors to encourage her. Oh, don't yell. My endeavors to encourage her were fruitless. She sat in the middle, held the man by the arm, and protested that if he did but save her life, she would make his fortune. Her uneasiness gave me much concern, and it was with the utmost difficulty I forbore to acquaint her with that she was imposed upon. But the mutual fear of the captain's resentment to me and of her own to him, neither of which would have any moderation, deterred me. Now I lost my place. As to the footman, he was evidently in torture from restraining his laughter, and I observed that he was frequently obliged to make most horrid grimaces from pretended fear in order to conceal his risibility. Very soon after, "The robbers are coming!" cried the coachman. The footman opened the door and jumped out of the chariot. Madame Duval gave a loud scream. I could no longer preserve my silence. "For heaven's sake, my dear madam," said I, "don't be alarmed. You are in no danger. You are quite safe. There is nothing but—" Hence the chariot was stopped by 2 men in masks, who, at each side, put in their hands as if for our purses. Madame Duval sank to the bottom of the chariot and implored their mercy. I shrieked involuntarily, although prepared for the attack. One of them held me fast, while the other tore poor Madame Duval out of the carriage, in spite of her cries, threats, and resistance. I was really frightened. What's it doing? Oh, is that pretty? What is it? Oh, oh wow. Oh wow, so pretty. I was really frightened and trembled exceedingly. My angel, cried the man who held me, you cannot surely be alarmed. Do you not know me? I should hold myself in eternal abhorrence if I have really terrified you. Indeed, Sir Clement, you have, cried I. But for heaven's sake, where is Madame Duval? Why is she forced away? She is perfectly safe. The captain has her in charge, but suffer me now, my adored Miss Anville, to take the only opportunity that is allowed me to speak upon another, a much dearer, much sweeter subject. And then he hastily came into the chariot and seated himself next to me. I would fain have disengaged myself from him, but he would not let me. Deny me not, most charming of women, cried he, deny me not this only moment that is lent to me, to pour forth my soul into your gentle ears, to tell you how much I suffer from your absence, how much I dread your displeasure, and how cruelly I am affected by your coldness. Oh, sir, this is no time for such language. Pray leave me. Pray go to the relief of Madame Duval. I cannot bear that she should be treated with such indignity. And can you command my absence? When may I speak to you, if not now? Does the captain suffer me to breathe a moment out of his sight, and are not 1,000 impertinent people forever at your elbow? Indeed, Sir Clement, you must change your style, or I will not hear you. The impertinent people you mean are among my best friends, and you would not, if you really wish me well, speak of them so disrespectfully. Wish you well? Oh, Miss Anville, point out Point but out to me how, in what manner I may convince you of the fervour of my passion. Tell me but what services you will accept from me, and you shall find my life, my fortune, my whole soul at your devotion. I want nothing, sir, that you can offer. I beg you not to talk to me so strangely. Pray leave me, and pray assure yourself you cannot take any method so successless to show any regard for me as entering into schemes so frightful to Madame Duval and so disagreeable to myself. The scheme was the captain's. I even opposed it, though I own I could not refuse myself the so long wished for happiness of speaking to you once more without so many of your friends to watch me, and I had flattered myself that the note I charged the footman to give you would have prevented the alarm you had received. Well, sir, now you know. Oh, my goodness, sorry. Well, sir, you have now, I hope, said enough, and if you will not go yourself to see for Madame Duval, at least suffer me to inquire what has become of her. And when may I speak to you again? No matter when. I don't know. Perhaps what, my angel? Perhaps never, sir, if you torment me thus. Never. Oh, Miss Anville, how cruel, how piercing to my soul is that icy word. Indeed, I cannot endure such displeasure. Then, sir, you must not provoke it. Pray leave me directly. I will, madam, but let me at least make a merit of my obedience. Allow me to hope that you will, in future, be less averse to trusting yourself for a few moments alone with me. I was so surprised at the freedom of this request, but while I hesitated how to answer it, the other mask came up to the chariot door, and in a voice almost stifled with laughter said, I've done for her, the old buck. Oh, the old buck is safe, but we must sheer off directly, or we shall be all aground. Sir Clement instantly left me, mounted his horse, and rode off. The captain, having given some directions to the servants, followed him. I was both uneasy and impatient to know the fate of Madame Duval, and immediately got out of the chariot to seek her. I desired the footman to show me which way she was gone. He pointed with his finger by way of answer, and I saw that he dared not trust his voice to make any other. I walked on a very quick pace, and soon, to my great consternation, perceived the poor lady seated upright in a ditch. I flew to her with unfeigned concern at her situation. She was sobbing, nay, almost roaring, and in that utmost agony of rage and terror. As soon as she saw me, she redoubled her cries, but her voice was so broken I could not understand a word she said. I was so much shocked that it was with difficulty I forbear exclaiming against the cruelty of the captain for thus wantonly ill-treating her, and I could not forgive myself for having passively suffered the deception. I used my utmost endeavours to comfort her, assuring her of our present safety, and begging her to rise and return to the chariot. Almost bursting with passion, she pointed to her feet, and with frightened violence she actually beat the ground with her hands. I then saw that her feet were tied together with a strong rope, which was fastened to the upper branch of a tree, even with a hedge which ran along the ditch where she was. I endeavoured to untie the knot, but soon found it was infinitely beyond my strength. I was therefore obliged to apply to the footman, but being very unwilling to add to his mirth by the sight of Madame Duval's situation, I desired him to lend me a knife. I returned with it and cut the rope. Her feet were soon disentangled, and then, though with great difficulty, I assisted her to rise. But what was my astonishment when, the moment she was up, she hit me with a violent slap on the face. I retreated from her with precipitation and dread, and she then loaded me with reproaches which, though almost unintelligible, convinced me that she had imagined I had voluntarily deserted her. But she seemed not to have the slightest suspicion that she had not been attacked by real robbers. I was so much surprised and confounded at the blow that for some time I suffered her to rave without making any answer. But her extreme agitation and real suffering soon dispelled my anger, which all turned into compassion. I then told her that I had been forcibly detained from following her, and assured her of my real sorrow at her ill usage. She began to be somewhat appeased, and I again entreated her to return to the carriage, or give me leave to order that it should be drawn up to the place where we stood. She made no answer till I told her that the longer we remained still, the greater would be the danger of our ride home. Struck with this hint, she suddenly and with hasty steps moved forward. Her dress was in such disorder that I was quite sorry to have her figure exposed to the servants, with all of them, in imitation of their master, held her in derision. However, the disgrace was unavoidable. The ditch, happily, was almost... Shh, hey, you're so noisy. The ditch was almost quite dry. Oh, I lost my place again. Where was I? Or she must have suffered still more seriously, yet so forlorn, so miserable a figure I never saw before. Her headdress had fallen off, her linen was torn, her negligee had not a pin left in it, her petticoat she was obliged to hold on, and her shoes were perpetually slipping off. She was covered with dirt, weeds, and filth, and her face was really horrible, for I don't even know this word, the pomatum, and powder from her head and the dust from the road were quite pasted on her skin by her ears, which with her rouge made so frightful a mixture that she hardly looked human. The servants were ready to die with laughter the moment they saw her, but not all my remonstrances could prevail upon her to get into the carriage, till she had most vehemently reproached them both for not rescuing her. The footman, fixing his eyes on the ground, as if fearful of again trusting himself to look at her, protested that the robbers had vowed that they would shoot him if he moved an inch, and that one of them had stayed to watch the chariot while the other carried her off, adding that the reason of their behaving so barbarously was to revenge our having secured our purses. Notwithstanding her anger, she gave immediate credit to what he said, and really imagined that her want of money had irritated the pretended robbers to treat her with such cruelty. I determined, therefore, to be carefully upon my guard, nor to betray the imposition which could now answer no other purpose than occasioning an irreparable breach between her and the captain. Just as we were seated in the chariot, she discovered the loss which her head had sustained, and called out, "What has become of my hair? Why, the villain has stolen all my curls!" She then ordered the man to run and see if he could find any of them in the ditch. He went, and presently returning, produced a great quantity of hair, and so she wears fake hair, in such a nasty condition that I was amazed she would take it. And the man, as he delivered it to her, found it impossible to keep his countenance, which she no sooner observed than all her stormy passions were again raised. She flung the battered curls in his face, saying, "Sir,
What do you grin for? I wish you'd been served so yourself, and you wouldn't have found it was no such joke. You are the impudentest fellow ever I see, and if find you dare grin at me any more, I will make no ceremony of boxing your ears. Satisfied with the threat, the man hastily retired, and we drove on. Her anger now subsiding into grief, she began most sorrowfully to lament her case. I believe, she cried, no, never nobody was so unlucky as I am. And so here, because I haven't the misfortune. Listen, my voice. Because I hadn't had misfortune enough already. The puppy has made me lose my curls. Why, I can't see nobody without them. Only look at me. I was never so bad off in my life before. Pardie, if I'd known as much, I'd have brought 2 or 3 sets with me. But I've never thought of such a thing as this. Finding her now somewhat pacified, I ventured to ask an account of her adventure, which I will endeavor to write in her own words. Why, child, all this misfortune comes of that puppy's making us leave our money behind us. For as soon as the robbers see I did not put nothing in his hands, he lugged me out of the chariot by main force, and I verily thought he'd have murdered me. He was as strong as a lion. I was no more in his hands than a child. But I believe never nobody was so abused before, for he dragged me down the road, pulling and hauling me all the way, as if I'd no more feeling than a horse. I'm sure I wish I could see that man cut up and quartered alive. However, he'll come to the gallows, that's one good thing. So, you're such a helper. As soon as we got out of sight of the chariot, though he needn't have been afraid, for if he'd beat me. I'm sorry. I'm not reading well. Though he needn't have been afraid, for if he'd beat me to a mummy, those cowardly fellows wouldn't have said nothing to it. So when I was got there, and what does he do? But all of a sudden he takes me by both the shoulders, and he gives me such a shake. Mon Dieu, I shall never forget it if I live to be 100. I'm sure I dare say I'm out of joint all over. And though I had made as much noise as ever I could, he took no more notice of it than nothing at all. But there he stood, shaking me in that manner, as if he were doing it for a wager. I'm determined, if it costs me all my fortune, I'll see that villain hanged. He shall be found out if there's e'er justice in England. So, when he had shook me till he was tired, and I felt all over like a jelly, without saying never a word, he takes and pops me into the ditch. I'm sure I thought he'd have murdered me, but as much as I ever thought anything in my life, for he kept bumping me about as if he thought nothing too bad for me. However, I'm resolved I'll never leave my purse behind me again the longest day I have to live. So when he couldn't stand over me no longer, he holds out his hands again for my money, but he was as cunning as could be, for he wouldn't speak a word because I shouldn't swear to his voice. However, that shan't save him, for I'll swear to him any day in the year if you can but catch him. So when I told him I had no money, he fell to jerking me again, if he had but, just as if he had but that moment begun. And after that, he got me close by a tree, and out of his pocket he pulls a great cord. It's a wonder I did not swoon away, for as sure as you're alive, he was going to hang me to that tree. I screamed like anything mad, and told him if he would but spare my life, I'd never prosecute him nor tell nobody what he'd done to me. So he stood some time quite in a brown study, a thinking what he should do. And so after that he forced me to sit down in the ditch, and he tied my feet together, just as you see them, and then, as if he had not done enough, he twitched off my cap, and without saying nothing got on his horse, and left me in that condition, thinking, I suppose, that I might lie there and perish. Though this narrative almost compelled me to laugh, yet I was really irritated with the captain for carrying his love of tormenting sport, he calls it, to such barbarous and unjustifiable extremes. I consoled and soothed her as well as I was able, and told her that, since Monsieur Dubois had escaped, I hoped when she recovered from her fright all would end well. Fright, child, cried she, why that's not half. I promise you I wish it was, but here I'm bruised from top to toe, and it's well if ever I have the right use of my limbs again. However, I'm glad the villain got nothing but his trouble for his pains, for here the worst is to come. For I can't go out because I've got no curls, and so he'll be escaped before I can get to the justice to stop him.
She won't be seen without her fake hair, so she's rather let him get away than pursue justice and be seen without her fake hair. That's hilarious.
I'm resolved I'll tell Lady Howard how her man served me, for if he hadn't made me fling him away, I dare say I could have pinned them up well enough for the country. Perhaps Lady Howard may be able to lend you a cap that will wear without them. Lady Howard, indeed! Why, do you think I'd wear one of her dowdies? No, I'll promise you I shan't put on so much disguisement. It's the unluckiest thing in the world that I did not make the man pick up the curls again, but he put me in such a passion I could not think of nothing. I know I can't get none at Howard Grove for love nor money. For all of the stupid places ever I see, that Howard Grove is the worst. There's never no getting nothing one wants. This sort of conversation lasted till we arrived at our journey's end, and then a new distress occurred. Madame Duval was eager to speak to Lady Howard and Mrs. Mervyn, and to relate her misfortunes. But she could not endure that Sir Clement or the captain should see her in such disorder, for she said they were so ill-natured that instead of pitying her, they would only make a jest of her distress. She therefore sent me first into the house to wait for an opportunity of their being out of the way, that she might steal upstairs unobserved. In this I succeeded, as the gentlemen thought it most prudent not to seem watching for her, though they both contrived to divert themselves with peeping at her as she passed. She went immediately to bed, where she had her supper. Lady Howard and Mrs. Mervyn, both of them, very kindly sat with her and listened to her tale with compassionate attention, while Miss Mervyn and I retired to our own room, where I was very glad to end the troubles of the day in a comfortable conversation. The captain's raptures during supper at the success of his plan were boundless. I spoke afterwards to Mrs. Mervyn with the openness which her kindness encourages, and begged her to remonstrate with him upon the cruelty of tormenting Madame Duval so causelessly. She promised to take the first opportunity of starting the subject, but said he was at present so much elated that he would not listen to her with any patience. However, should he make any new efforts to molest her, I can by no means consent to be passive. Had I imagined he would have been so violent, I would have risked his anger in her defence much sooner. She has kept her bed all day, and declares she is almost bruised to death. Adieu, sir, dear sir. What a long letter have I written. I could almost fancy I sent it to you from London. Well, that was a long one again. Whoops, I kind of thought that it was two short ones. What is the matter? What's the matter? Okay. All right. Okay, baby. Anyway, my goodness, I'm so tired. I'm dizzy. I'm so tired. So tired. So we will leave it there, and we will say good night, and we will see you next time. Jump up. You want to say bye? No? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you step on it? Did it hurt your foot? It's okay. Come here. I got you. Oh, give me a hug. I love you. Say bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. You're so sweet. Well, on that sweet note, we'll see you next time. Bye. You're so precious. You're so cute. I love you. Bye.